Welcome. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about the variable declaration syntax. Using a particular syntax allows you to tell Go about your intentions. For example, to declare a variable, you need to follow the rules of the variable declaration syntax of Go. Also, you need to declare a variable before you can use it. So you can't just throw a value to an unknown variable which doesn't exist yet. This is important and necessary for the compile time safety. For example, in a dynamic programming language, you can just assign a value to a variable even before declaring it. It's easy to use, but it may not be easy for you to maintain your program afterwards. Let's start with an example. Imagine that you have a customer who wants you to write a program that will record various measurements from vehicles. In this imaginary scenario, your program will be installed into millions of vehicles. Oh my goodness. Okay, then you go and start programming. Here's the usual package main and main function as an entry point to your program. I'm going to declare a variable for storing the current speed of a car, like this. Let's zoom a little bit into this declaration to understand it better. You may have already guessed that this is the variable declaration syntax in Go. Now let's take a look at the parts of this syntax. This var keyword means variable. It simply tells Go that let's declare a variable. So you always have to type this keyword first. After the var keyword, you need to give a unique name to your variable. Here, the speed is the name of this variable. More formally, names are also called identifiers. A name or an identifier helps you and Go to understand which variable you are referring to. And as I said before, a variable gives a name to a value, so you can reuse it later. Naming a variable is such an important concept that there's a saying that goes like this. There are only two hard things in computer science: cache invalidation and naming things. And I agree with that. I'll talk about a few tips about selecting good names later. Let's take a look at a few rules about names. By the way, keep in mind that these naming rules are not only for variables. They also apply to other names such as function names, package names, and so on. Okay, the first rule is that a name should always start with a letter or an underscore character. This is because, as you've seen before, when the first letter of a name is an uppercase letter, that name becomes exported, so the other packages can use it. That's one of the reasons why a name should start with a letter. Okay, let's take a look at a few more examples. A name can contain uppercase letters. In this example, this speed name is exported since its first letter is an uppercase letter. It also ends with an uppercase letter. However, I've used it here as an example. Normally, we don't name variables like this. As an exception, a name can also start with an underscore character. And lastly, a name can have Unicode letters. By the way, this word means speed in Japanese. I hope that is true. This works because Go can understand Unicode letters. Now let's take a look at what you can't do. For example, a name cannot start with a number like this. Or a name can start with a punctuation character like this. Also, a name can contain a punctuation character inside or it can't end with it. It's because punctuation characters have special meanings in Go, and it is easier for Go compiler to parse the names. And lastly, a name can't only contain reserved Go keywords. For example, if Go was allowing you to do that, you'll never be able to declare a variable, since the var keyword declares a new variable. So Go doesn't allow you to override its own keywords. As you've seen, these rules are there to prevent ambiguities. They help Go compiler to understand what you mean, and they make the compiler's job easier. Okay, that's all for the naming rules. Let's continue. Here, int is the type of this variable. It is short for integer. In Go, every variable and value has a type. It's because Go is a strongly typed programming language. It's not like Python or JavaScript. It's more like C, Java, and C#. This helps compiler to find bugs in your program even before you run it. A variable's type determines what type of values you can store in the variable and where you can use that variable. For example, this is an integer variable, right? So you can only store an integer value in this variable, and you can only use it with other integer values or variables. So as I said in the introduction, once you declare a type for a variable, you can change it afterwards. It's static. If you could do so, then there wouldn't be the strong type safety of Go. Then it would invite bugs. Okay, so now you know what a variable declaration syntax looks like in Go. Let's get back to the example program. Now let's print this variable to the console. Let me type println. Alright, ready. Let's run it now. It prints 0. It's because a variable is initialized to a 0 value when it's been declared without an initial value. I'll explain what a 0 value means later. Now let's take a look at what happens when you use a variable before you declare it. In Go, the order of statements is very important, since Go runs the code from top to bottom. Here, I have moved the variable declaration after the println call. Can you guess what would happen now? Okay, let's run it. This program cannot even compile, let alone run. The error message says that speed variable hasn't been declared. This means that it doesn't exist yet, so println can't print it. If you are an experienced programmer, this is not a surprise for you. However, if you are coming from a language such as JavaScript, then you know the difference. If you don't know JavaScript, let me tell you that in JavaScript you can do this. I mean, you can use a variable even before you declare it. It even has a name, variable hosting. Check out the link in the resources, you'll understand what I mean. I have prepared a program for you in JavaScript. So in the end, the speed variable looks like this. Its name is speed, its static type is int, and Go has assigned it a value of 0 automatically. And the type of its value is also int. So congrats! Now you know how to declare a variable. By the way, I know that this was a lot of talk, but don't worry, you'll see more examples as you progress. So you'll understand everything naturally. However, this also depends on you. You can always pause the videos and type the programs along with me, so you can try them yourself. It is the best way to understand Go. Alright, thank you for watching. See you in the next lecture.